All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 7. That is right, week number 7 of your 9407 class, which is your intellectual freedom class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. J.S.K. Austin, and it is Banned Books Week. So what we are going to do this week is we are going to do a quick state of the course update, and then I'm going to soapbox a little bit about Banned Books Week, and I'm going to provide you with some links and some things of that nature. Banned Books Week is a thing, and so I'm going to have a bunch of optional literature associated with this thing. But first, let's go ahead and get into that state of the course update. I am recording this on October the 6th, so let's get to there. All right, so your Banned and Challenged book report is going to be due in about 20 days from when I'm recording this. It is going to be due 2 weeks from this coming Sunday. So that's the main thing. 2 weeks from this coming Sunday, you are going to turn in that Banned book report or challenged book report, and that is going to be turned in through a discussion board. And the reason for that is that's going to be peer-to-peer learning. After all of those are turned in, I'm going to give you all the opportunity to, if you would like, to read those other Banned book reports, learn a little bit, and those are good things just to know in general if you're a librarian, and they can be good conversation starters at conferences and that sort of thing. Okay. All right. So know that that's on the horizon, but aside from that, we really just have discussion board prompts for a while, and then in early November we will have another sync session. That one is going to be on library neutrality. Okay. And that is actually pretty much it with the state of the course update. You all have been doing just fine. I believe that now all of the First Amendment quizzes have been, I believe that you all have now all taken your First Amendment quiz. So I don't need to scold you all anymore about that. I'm gonna keep these coming. I've got, for those of you, I did get some feedback from the one of the teams that's going to be debating in December. One of your teammates just sent me some question about the debate format, so that was a well-timed question. I will be getting that to you all this week. So for those of you who are on the other team that didn't reach out for me, yes, that's going to be coming to you as well. Okay. All right. I think that is pretty much it for the state of the course update. So now let's go ahead and take a look at just a few things about Banned Books Week, which again, Banned Books Week is this week. It started yesterday on October the 5th, and it runs through October the 11th for 2025. All right. Let's go ahead and look at a few things. All right, so one of the first things that I actually wanted to tell you all about was when it comes to discussing Banned Books Week, is that not all librarians are actually into it at this point. So this is something that I think that a lot of younger librarians are really into Banned Books Week. It's like one of those things that, again, can be a conversation piece. They can be programming around it, so forth and so on. But as you get older and you've been in the field for a while, and I've been in the field since 2006, I've been a professional since 2008. And what I can say is that, yeah, it starts to get a little, celebrating or observing Banned Books Week. It can be kind of just like, again, unless we are, for one thing, I think that in the past and until very recently, Banned Books Week has focused too much on the classic literature that was banned, your Huck Finns, your Bluest Eyes, your things that have been around for a long, long time. And your 1984, things like that, Catcher in the Rye. And so it really wasn't until really about 10 years ago, even like around 2015, 2016, that we started seeing Banned Books Week kind of transform and start including more writers of color, more things that had less to do with race and gender, and now things that deal more with gender identity as well as sexual orientation and that sort of thing. We're seeing those things get banned more now. But there was a time when, and this is Annoyed Librarian. Annoyed Librarian had a very popular blog, and that blog even came under the auspices of ALA for a little while. That they, a few years ago, they ended that agreement. I can't even remember why, but Annoyed Librarian was, definitely had the ear of a lot of librarians back in the day. And this thing, I'll read this aloud real quick. Since the American Library Association has nothing new to say on the matter, neither do I read the old stuff. It's still better than the nonsense emanating from the American Library Association. Take a look at the books down shown in the first link. Yeah, it's hard for people to get a hold of a Harry Potter book, and I'm sure Catcher in the Rye isn't available either, and forget Huck Finn. Keep in mind that this is 2008, okay? And so that's the thing. What I wanted to highlight by bringing that up is that there was a time when librarians were a little too comfortable, and including myself. 2008 was again when I got my first librarian job, and we were very comfortable at that time. We were like, yeah, I mean, things are flowing. You know, we just got out of the Bush administration. Obama was a liberal. He wasn't going to be doing a whole lot of book banning, but even before Obama got there, we had 8 years of good library times, even under a conservative president, under George W. Bush from 2001 to 2009. George W. Bush's wife, Laura Bush, is a librarian, and she actually did a lot to support IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And in fact, I was able to get both my master's and my PhD through Laura Bush's initiatives. So we were in good times back then. And I don't think I certainly did not predict. I always thought, and this was naivete on my part, I always thought that the arc would always bend toward, because of the internet, because of pirating, and because everything was just becoming at that time like easier to access. I thought that was the arc that we were always going to be on, that we were always going to be on the, okay, it's going to be easier to access this sort of thing arc. I thought that books back in 2008, I would have told you that book bans were probably going to be a thing of the past, because we have so many ways to make books readily available to people at this time. And then comes what has come over the past few years. And so now it is not the gravy situation that I had always looked at it as. But even in 2007, so yes, I do want to read this real quick, this last paragraph here. When you click that link, it goes into something else with Annoyed Librarian, and I'm going to have this linked all into the announcement. But yeah, when you click that link, it will get that I just clicked. So because I do encourage you all to click it. So read the old stuff if you're interested in that. You can see how Annoyed Librarian was thinking back in 2007. And yeah, I just think, again, this is almost 20 years ago. Now it's 18 years ago. Things in this amount of time, you can see the comfort here, the comfort. You can read this on your own if you want. It's actually a very thought-provoking read to see how things were at that time. But this last paragraph, this will show you the comfort that we were dealing with back in 2007, before we could have guessed that any of these things that have since happened would happen. Some wonder why I get so annoyed by this banned book propaganda. I get annoyed because it's a bunch of lies designed to get us all worried about a threat that doesn't exist, so that the ALA can then boldly take an irrelevant stand and provide a solution that's not necessary. What is there to get annoyed about? So, Annoyed Librarian here, actually, if you read through this, Annoyed Librarian is kind of, I would say even just kind of taking shots or making fun of the idea of the government banning books. The Annoyed Librarian is saying that's when we would have a problem, is when the government is banning books. So comparisons with actual threats to intellectual freedom should make it clear how much of a joke this is. Unless government censorship or control of information is involved, there is no threat. And I think that as Annoyed Librarian is saying this, Annoyed Librarian is, I mean, certainly in 2007, nobody really saw this Trump thing coming. We just did not see it coming. But yeah, there's a comfort here. Unless there's government censorship or control of information is involved, there is no threat. And this goes on as if that's not going to happen. But we know now that we were never out of the woods as far as that was concerned. And yes, we do have a situation now where governments are trying to, local governments in particular, are trying to have things removed from shelves. And this has been going on for years now. Throughout the Biden administration, really started happening within the first Trump administration. Okay. So I think the lesson here is that we can never get so comfortable. We can never think that, oh, technology is this and oh, people's desire for access to information is that. So we are always going to move further and further into the best direction for access to these materials, and we're not going to see the banning again. No, we are going to see the challenges and the bans, and we're going to see the censorship, and we can't allow ourselves to get so comfortable that we think, oh, well, the public is just on board now, and we're never going to go back into those times that ALA teaches us about. Wrong. We can go back to them, and now we do find ourselves back into them. Okay, so yeah, and I'll also post this up real quick, because this is also worth devoting a little bit of attention to. The focus on, I'm not going to read this whole thing or even most of it, but I will link it out, is from 2 years ago. Oh, exactly 2 years ago, because I am recording this on October 6, 2025. All right, it is Banned Books Week, but librarians are over it. I'm, again, going to link this, but what I'm going to actually talk about really quickly is this right here. The focus on banned books and efforts to protect them takes away energy and time that could be spent on goals like bridging the digital divide, encouraging early literacy, and providing community for seniors and others who might otherwise be isolated. So, yes, Banned Books Week, it can be fun. A lot of libraries do like to establish programming around it. They like to talk about the history of banned books, share that with patrons and everything. And that is the dominant narrative that you're going to hear. So when you do talk to librarians, most librarians are going to be of the ilk of, hey, yeah, we're doing this for Banned Books Week. It's going to be great. My library is doing this. We're going to talk about that, blah, blah, blah. And that's cool. That is, again, the dominant paradigm that you're going to find. But you are going to find those librarians who are just sick of Banned Books Week, who are like, yeah, it's great that we talk about banned books and everything, and we're aware that it's going on. But talking about banned books is something that takes my efforts away from, or programming around banned books takes my efforts away from things that I do think could be programming that can actually improve people's lives, money programming, health programming, that sort of thing. So that's what a lot of librarians really wish they could focus their efforts on. But hey, Banned Books Week is only a week long. So, and you might be able to do all your planning for Banned Books Library with, a few days worth of work, about a month in advance, get the programs on the calendar and so forth and so on. And then if they're recurring programs, then you can just recycle your programs from the next year and that sort of thing. So again, librarians are, even though you have a dominant prevailing narrative that embraces Banned Books Week, I did want you all to see that there are librarians who are actually kind of against it. Going to look at a couple other things and then I'll let you go. We're going to try to keep this under 20 minutes. All right, so this is another thing I'll link and that I wanted to kind of show you all real quick. Where did I go? Why does my software do this? Hold on. Okay, I just needed to see where I was on the screen, so now I can move myself. This is an Instagram post from a librarian that I'm just going to also kind of link in that announcement for this. There is a Q&A piece to this that I found pretty interesting, so that's why I wanted to share that with you. This is the main thing that I wanted right here, because this is probably something that you're going to be asked at some point, or might not come in a form of question, but anyway, here we go. Most books you list aren't even banned universally. That's the point that this person who is making fun is trying to state. So the answer to that from this librarian is actually that's never how book bans work. According to the American Library Association, a book is considered banned if it's removed from one library's shelf in response to a removal request. It's considered challenged as soon as one person asks for its removal, even if they are unsuccessful in having it removed. So I want that to kind of be clear. People will say, well, the books aren't really banned. You can get them on Amazon. We have definitions that we're going to use. We are treating ALA as an authoritative source for the definitions in this case, but we're not looking at a dictionary definition of ban. Yes, according to our professional standards, a banned book is a book that has been, a book is considered banned if it's removed from a library's shelf in response to a removal request from one library's shelf. That means that it can be available. Your state could have 100 library systems in it, 100 public library systems in it, and 99 of those public library systems can still have the book. But if the book was challenged at one of those 100 libraries, and 99 libraries still have it, but one library removed it in response to a challenge, that book is banned per our professional standards and definitions. Okay. So let's not get into a whole thing about, well, the books aren't banned because you can buy them. No, that is not how we treat. And maybe there is something, I will say that a lot of this does come down to semantics. It kind of reminds me, doesn't really remind me, but it gives vibes of, if you all remember the whole defund the police thing, and people were like, well, defund the police doesn't actually mean defund the police. That's what you would hear, even from the left. And I think that the left just has a branding problem. So yeah, you can say that these books aren't banned, and by our professional standards, they are banned, again, if they are removed from one library shelf, but that is also not the terminology that the public at large uses. So that's something that I think has us shooting ourselves in the foot, basically, is we're trying to always we're trying to advance these concepts with really bad terminology, and we do that really often. So banning might not have been the right word to use, but it is the word that we're using, and until we can come to some sort of consensus for replacing that word with a better word, and yes, we just do have to keep stating that, hey, according to our professional standards, a book is banned if it is removed from one library shelf in response to a challenge. Okay. All right. Let's look at some other things here really quickly as I try to keep this under 20 minutes. All right. This is one of the last things I'll go over, and then I'll go over a final thing after I do this next to the last thing. I do want to, yes, this is Banned Books Week, but we also do have the Let Freedom Read Day, which is going to be this coming Saturday, October the 11th. So, there is some action that you can take for those of you who are action oriented. There's a really good breakdown here. If you've only got 5 minutes, here's some things you can do. But if you've got more, like 15 minutes, you can do some things like this. If you have 30 minutes, you can even, and we are going to have a letter writing assignment in this class. So now you see where Dr. Jace gets some of his ideas. And then if you have an hour or more, you can do things like volunteer and start organizing. Okay. So I wanted that to be clear. If you're action oriented, this will give you some ideas for action to take this week. But again, all of this is optional. And then finally, okay, we actually might make it under 20 minutes because I'm not going to talk at length about this one either. So, this is actually a really, really good piece here from 2 years ago. A debate on book banning in schools. I just like, in fact, I'm probably going to make this actually a required reading next year, but I wasn't aware of it when I was updating readings for this semester. But I do think that some of this is worth a read, in part because it's not just towing the left wing line, if you will. Like, a lot of this stuff does have a liberal slant. Whether it's for Banned Books Week or against Banned Books Week, it does have kind of that leftist slant and everything. But there is I would say I was actually somewhat impressed by this when they were talking about activists have hijacked the kids' book industry and libraries. I do think that that is the case. And remember that these quote unquote activists are not the people who are actually working within the libraries. At least they shouldn't be. An activist is not somebody who works in a library because that person is accountable to the power structure. And I can go into that more. Basically, there's a difference between activist and advocate, and you can kind of Google the differences online. But one of the big differences is, are you working within the power structure or against it? If you are an advocate, you're working within it. If you are an activist, you're working against it instead of within it. And so a lot of librarians lose their place. They think that they are activists when they're really advocates, and they do the work that people outside of the institution should really be doing and not them. All right, but having said that, yes, the activists have hijacked the kids' book industry. I think there's some really worthwhile things for us who are on the left or left-leaning to consider there. And you can tell by, author of Woke Army, you can tell that this is somebody who is not going to toe the liberal line. Yes, I've been a classic liberal for most of my life. I've been a classic liberal, and for most of my life, I voted Democrat. But she says that in part because, yes, she's bringing out some things here that do not toe that Democratic line. Okay, it is time for me to get out of here. I am Dr. Jace, and don't let people ban books, because that is one way to erase. Jace erase. I got my rhyme. I can go to sleep. A little bit over 20 minutes, but not too much, and we'll end it now. Talk to you next week.